What's up, everybody? It's your boy Ryan, and this is the Thunder Channel on Nootropics. Going to do a Q&A on some major questions that came through, which I think are going to be interesting to you folks around nootropics. So first, every shred of information we put on the channel is brought to you by a couple products. Specials now on product are the following. We have, I think there's like 7 bottles of Cortex left, so I don't know, probably out of stock by the time you folks go get it, but if not, check. 30% off using the coupon code 30 on the Cortex stack right now. That's the 10th of July on a Friday. And then also the Cortex double stack is $24 a bottle. You just get 2 in a package, $24 a bottle Cortex double stack. Do that at livecortex.com. If you are looking to take your nootropics usage to the 6-year mark, people stack differently at that level. They get better results. They think about things in a more nuanced way. Go get the Nootropics Masterclass. It's a video course of me showing you how to do that and all kind of the, I hate to say secrets, but really the strategies that people that are 6 years deep in nootropics use. We discounted that to $55 even right now because the Nootropics God class is coming out, which is the decade plus mark. So go get Masterclass for $55 right now. If you're new to nootropics, you guys know the deal. You have to start with Nootropics Ground Zero. It's a video course that I created to show you how to start to get to the 3-year mark, to stop rummaging around all the conflicting dose information on the web. Just start there. It's an epic video course. Also 30% off using the coupon code 30. If you're a guy, you need to raise tests, man, no better protocol than the Viking testosterone protocol. Very many happy men with raised testosterone on that protocol. Also 30% off coupon code 30. Last couple things. If you are a business person that needs large-scale comprehensive energy baseline and mental performance optimization to the point where you're a beast like in your prime, either get the 1 month, the 3.5 month, or the 6 month intensive. These are all results-driven, constantly communicative biohacking consults where we will optimize virtually everything in your body to make you perform at peak levels. The 3.5 month and the 6 month also apply to PSSD and post-benzo syndrome. Get all that stuff at livecortex.com. Email me, Ryan, at livecortex.com for questions on what pertains to you. Okay. So I want to talk about 3 major questions that came through, which open up a whole line of discussion around nootropics, mainly centrophenoxine, and then stacking multiple things, like a lot of things in a stack together, and then what it really means to have God class strategies when you're formulating nootropic stacks and using nootropic stacks. Let's start for the first one. This was a weightlifter who is a pretty intense workout person asking if centrophenoxine is a good substitute for alpha-GPC or CDP choline because they don't give them the best effects for kind of just stimulating cholinergic receptors and getting the excitatory choline response in the brain. My answer to that is probably not. And here's why. Centrophenoxine and DMAE alike are not like regular building blocks to acetylcholine like some of these other compounds are. It's a completely different mechanism. It's mostly brain-centered, but it sort of seems to execute some sort of steal of choline from peripheral tissues, particularly where you need them for weightlifting for this individual in this specific example, which is your muscles. And choline is very responsible. It's a major part of muscular contraction. That's why people that take phenylpiracetam, which acts more on the cholinergic efficiency and usage side than other racetams, they get physical benefits from it. Right, it sort of acts like an actoprotector like bromontane, but that's via its cholinergic activity. Centrophenoxine and DMAE alike, Centro is just sort of the upgraded version of DMAE, though it has some pretty cool mechanisms like the reduction of lipofuscin in the brain. That's like an accumulation of toxins and metals and sugars and all kinds of stuff that we all have. Centro has been shown to reduce that. It also prevents choline metabolism in peripheral tissues. It basically just like shunts all the free choline in the blood to the brain, crosses the blood-brain barrier, stimulates cholinergic receptors, and then you get the choline response. So it's very, very different than just adding a choline source. But the problem is in that situation, at least in my view, is that would inhibit your workout capacity because you're stealing acetylcholine and therefore hardcore muscular contractions from where you need them. if you're lifting weights and shunting it all basically to the brain, which is not going to do you much good. So that's the answer to that question. Otherwise, I think Centro is good in low doses, used sparingly, because it should, if you get the dose right and you've got a B complex in the mix, give you some good brain function, some good excitatory, faster processing, better working memory type of stuff. But that is my take on it as it relates to this guy. Pretty important stuff. Next question came through via email, which was, Ryan, I'm going to paraphrase, what is the best way to stack like multiple nootropics? And this guy is kind of leaning toward the end of like 10 compounds together. Usually I don't suggest doing that. So here's the answer. Usually I don't suggest doing that because you can achieve you can achieve the brain performance state you want with nootropics at less quantity nootropics, and in most cases at lower doses. You just have to be stacking right. That kind of stuff takes years to figure out when you're into nootropics. But I would say this: there is an argument for essentially microdosing or low dosing a lot of nootropics at a time. And I opened up my experiment book to give you a good example of a stack that worked well for me. So here it is. It's 50 milligrams of aniracetam. It's 50 milligrams of oxiracetam. It is 20 milligrams of phenylalanine. It's 20 milligrams of modafinil. It's 20 milligrams of DMAE. It's 20 milligrams of L-theanine. It's 25 milligrams of uridine monophosphate. And it's a B complex. The interesting thing about the stack is it's dosed so low with essentially 8 compounds, microdosed, taken all at one time, that each sort of do different things, but in a very, very synergistic way to one another. You've got aniracetam, oxiracetam, speeding up acetylcholine release from the hippocampus, therefore increasing memory, giving you a mild stimulation. The phenylalanine is going to help you build adrenaline to some extent, depending on if you can synthesize dopamine well. Dopamine, but modafinil is in the mix, giving you some extracellular dopamine and improving wakefulness, again at small doses, but these are significant enough to make a difference, especially when stacked together. You've got some, again, free choline use shunted to the brain. I wouldn't work out in the stack as we described in the first question about centrophenoxine, but that will stimulate cholinergic receptors, and that will give you a good solid brain stimulation effect from it. Theanine is pretty good to have in the background, even at low doses. 20 milligrams will make a difference within this stack. You sort of have to look at everything on a relative scale. 20 milligrams kind of to just calm things down, and then 25 milligrams of uridine monophosphate. Now, a lot of people take a lot of these compounds in excess and get negative results. Some people can take these compounds in higher doses, but it's not all these compounds together, and that is fine. But if you take them in these low doses, this is a stack that came directly out of my experiment book. It worked extremely well for me, man. I had a good, solid focus. I had a great stimulation. I had some wakefulness. I had a background calm. I had motivation. But then I had neurotransmitter support with the B complex, okay? So that's really how you would, you could use various templates, but that's how you would stack multiple nootropics together. You just basically low dose them. And it's actually an epic strategy to microdose pretty synergistic nootropic compounds together to get like a really, really good but balanced effect, okay? The last question comes from somebody inquiring about the Nootropics God class, which is a course that we're going to be launching soon. I'm about halfway done writing it, which explains and shows people with definitive examples and protocols how people at the decade-plus mark, that's 10 years plus, that have been taking nootropics, how they take nootropics, what they think about. So the question really is, a clue into God class strategies. So when you get to the 10-year level of taking nootropics, your approach is extremely, extremely nuanced. Okay, so if you're into nootropics that long, it would be impossible at that point for you not to have studied mechanistically what everything does and every single one of its mechanisms, right? Because some compounds have multiple mechanisms, multiple downstream mechanisms. We're talking about some of the choline sources or choline affecting compounds also having mechanisms for stomach acid production, as well as like lower esophageal sphincter modification. It's like very, very, very nuanced at that level. You sort of know what everything is doing. And it gives you an advantage to be able to fix major problems because you just have this large-scale, comprehensive, very, very granular understanding of your brain chemistry and what to take to modify it to reach certain goals. So I'll give you an example. How a person at that level would think about dosing something or reaching the point of a dopaminergic surge or a good dopamine-centered response would be the following. So as an example, if someone were to take like 500 or 600 milligrams of phenylalanine, phenylalanine eventually will become dopamine, epinephrine, and norepinephrine, right? It's kind of very, very close to the formulation of those chemicals in your brain. So as an example, a person at like the 3-year mark or maybe the 5-year mark or the 1-year mark would take that and think that definitely that's just going to build dopamine because that's sort of the broad brush pathway that it executes. However, at the God class level, the 10-year mark and taking nootropics, you think about things more nuanced, as I said. And so there's a couple things to break down. You have to ask the question first, is your brain capable of taking phenylalanine and making dopamine from it? Okay, is it capable of doing that? And the number one criteria for that is being able to or having functional enzymes that are for dopamine synthesis that work well. Those are tyrosine hydroxylase mainly and dopamine decarboxylase. So if you don't have those functioning correctly in all kind of situations like a lot of heavy Adderall use or otherwise dopaminergic stimulant use could downregulate the function of those enzymes. So what you would want to do is you would want to either bring in 15 to 40 milligrams of bromontane, which directly facilitates the function of those enzymes acutely and somewhat longer term if you take it for a while, so that you've got the enzymes functioning correctly. But at the same time, you would probably want to make sure that the dopamine receptors, D1 and then the D-like family of dopamine receptors, are capable enough to receive the dopamine signal and transmit it correctly and have you actually notice the response. And the way that you would try to optimize that is, in addition to taking bromontane, you'd probably want to dose like 15 to 40 milligrams, depending on your dose, of 9-methylbicarboline, because that is not only working on those enzymes, so you sort of have a double effect on the enzyme upregulation part of it, but that is also heavily fostering the receptivity or the sensitivity really of those dopamine receptors that you would want dopamine to hit for you to actually end up in the dopamine response. I would say the last part of like what makes a person sort of in the God class strategy of the decade plus using nootropics is looking at, well, what else will phenylalanine do, and is there a way that you can combat that? Phenylalanine will increase to an extent adrenaline and noradrenaline, and that could easily subsequently have a downstream effect on raising cortisol, which in this case might make you a little anxious. So the one thing you would want to look at in the event that happened, so say you try that stack and you end up with some sort of anxious response in addition to the motivated response because you did everything well on the dopamine side, is you would want to try the stack again, but you'd want to take something that marginally lowers cortisol, demonstrated to marginally lower cortisol. And in that case, I would low dose something like phosphatidylserine. Okay, so that is the bigger picture on how people at the 10-year mark take nootropics. Those are the kind of nuanced, granular positions that they take. People like me take, and people that have been taking nootropics for a decade plus, that's the kind of stuff they do. It's not just about a simple strategy of taking phenylalanine because you think it increases dopamine. It's about taking it, making the enzymes that make dopamine synthesis possible work better, and then improving receptor function acutely with 9-methylbicarboline. And at the same time, if there is an increase in cortisol, having something to back that up like phosphatidylserine. You see, it is very complicated, but when you get to that level, it's not complicated. It just seems complicated from the outside because there's multiple steps. If I would summarize what it is to be at the God class in taking nootropics, again, the decade mark, it's really understanding what everything does and then having a plan to more specifically reach the brain state that you want to reach. And that is based on your heavy understanding of neurochemistry and a lot of experience in taking nootropics. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Look out for the Nootropics God class that's coming out sometime in the next month or so, maybe month and a half. There's a lot going on with Cortex Labs right now, and I'm about halfway done writing it. In the meantime, the Nootropics Masterclass, which is just below that, that's the 6-year mark, where you still get substantial results. It doesn't go so deep into mechanisms, because at that point you really just don't need to fully understand that stuff, but there's a lot of really good strategies. I mean, if you want to take yourself to the 6-year plus mark and taking nootropics, you got to get the Nootropics Masterclass. You can get that at livecortex.com, and right now, it is permanently, or I wouldn't say permanently, it is for a good bit until the God course comes out, reduced to $55. That's the cheapest it's ever been. Normally $119. Never going to be that cheap again. No coupon codes. Okay, do that at livecortex.com. If you're new to nootropics, you guys know the deal. You have to get Nootropics Ground Zero. It is a video course that I created for people that are new. Okay, let that be all you need to know. Go get it at livecortex.com. That's 30% off if you use the coupon code 30. Same thing with the Viking Testosterone Protocol. Guys, very many happy men working with me, raising test, getting libido and sex drive back, erection quality back, strength back, focus back, motivation back. I mean, having high test does change your life as a guy. It's no BS, man. You know, Viking Testosterone Protocol is very powerful. 30% off livecortex.com. You guys know the deal on the Cortex stack. We're basically out of it. We've got like 7 bottles left, so order if you can. And then more to come on that. I mean, there should be by the end of the month a bunch of new Cortex in, and we might be running some heavy specials, so pay attention to that. If you need my help, large-scale cognitive performance enhancement consulting. It's very hands-on biohacking consulting. You will have me biohack you to optimize pretty much everything in your brain and body to function super optimally. Either the 1-month intensive, the 3.5-month intensive, or the 6-month intensive. These are large-scale biohacking, hands-on, results-driven consults that are highly communicative, and the results we get are insane. Get those livecortex.com. The 3.5-month and the 6-month also apply to situations like PSSD, which is post-SSRI sexual dysfunction, where we can resolve that issue and reverse the derangement of the very many serotonin and dopamine receptor function, among some other things. That's a very complicated situation. Also applies to post-benzo syndrome, which is where you've been taking a benzo for a while, you're off of it, or you're trying to get off of it, but you just can't get your life back to normal because you're anxious all the time, and you've got these sensations in your chest, and you're like, you've got anhedonia and among other things. If there's any question about whether or not any of those consults apply to you, please just email me, ryan@livecortex.com, and we can hash it out. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. Talk to you next time.